Today we're going to talk about how to practice properly. Now it's a kind of a broad subject on how to practice. What we need to do is that when we decide to go up to the driving range, and regardless of how much time we're going to spend, but we understand that we have to go there with a focus. Which means I'm just not going to come up to the driving range and start hitting drivers as far as I can for 25 minutes. It's really not helping anything other than you hitting into a large area, not where it's going, not worried about tempo, alignment, things like that. So the important things when we practice, we want to keep things very simple, okay? So what we're going to start out here is I'm just going to kind of give you a general overview of what I do when I decide to come up to the range and practice. Now I don't do this often, but when I do come up and practice, or say for instance that for the next 6 months or so, I'm gonna have maybe a schedule of 20 tournaments throughout. Prior to the first tournament, I would be thinking about maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks out. And what I would do is either maybe doing some more training in the gym, working out, and also having a game plan and scheduling my week out on what days I might work on short game, driver, putting, things of that nature. So today we're going to talk about how coming up in the range and actually working on tempo, working on alignment, working on posture and things like that. Now you probably see the guys on television prior to the start on Thursday, maybe either Tuesday or Wednesday would be like a Pro-Am day, and they have a television camera on the range and they're showing everybody practicing. Well, what you normally do is you see pretty much 99% of the people will have these here, what they call alignment sticks or alignment rods, however you want to call them, and they use these for obviously, working on your alignment, posture, ball position, things like that. So these are very, very important. So if I'm focusing on trying to practice that day and say, listen, if I know I'm hitting it pretty solid or I'm hitting it pretty good, I want to make sure that I know where that ball's going. So there's nothing better than getting positive feedback when you practice. You don't need to have someone standing behind you and say, where am I aiming? Where did that go? Okay? You have instant feedback. So what I'm going to do here, and again, I'm just going to put my rods down here, and I'm going to kind of pick a target out in front of here. And so what I'll normally do is I'll actually stand behind a little bit farther, okay? And what I'll do is the farther I go back away, I'm getting a little bit better visual of where that alignment stick is actually aiming to. So we don't necessarily want this rod here to be pointing at our target. The rod that's down right now will actually be pointing slightly to the right of that. Because when I come in here and to hit a golf ball, the golf ball is not on the target line, it's actually parallel to the target line, okay? So we want to make sure that the first rod that I put down is actually a little bit to the right of that flagstick. It could probably be a matter of maybe 2 feet or so. So 100 yards out, 2 feet to the right probably will be pretty good here, because 2 inches to the left could be about 2 feet out there. And the farther it gets, obviously, the broader the distance, okay? So now what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to put another rod down for my body position, meaning making sure that my toes, knees, hips, shoulders are all parallel to that target line. Now, being a right-handed player, we call this parallel left. If I was a left-handed player and I was standing on the opposite side, we'd be calling that parallel right. Okay, so easy way to do this, you can take any club here, and we want to make sure that those are actually parallel to each other. So what I normally do is I grab one of my golf clubs here, and I measure the distance between the two. Now I don't want to get too far, because if I'm too far, my toes are going to be on top of it, and I don't want to get obviously too close to it, because obviously I won't have a good visual when I look down. So I did one side, now I'll do the other, and I'll double check it back in here. Very good. Okay, so now I've got my parallel lines that I'm actually going to be setting up to. Okay, now you could do other things also, is that you can line them up perpendicular, meaning if I put a club across here, now what I did is actually created 4 90-degree angles here, okay? And what this is showing me, ball position, okay? So if this shaft is in the middle of my feet, that means what? The ball position, the ball is in the middle of my feet. Now, particularly if we do this. Now, say for instance, I want that ball a little bit more forward, what I'll probably end up doing is moving this a little bit back. And I'll still put the shaft on the ground in the middle of my feet, but since that ball is about a full ball forward, we know that ball is of 1 ball forward of center, which I probably would play the majority of my 7 irons, 6 irons, 5 irons. Now for all my wedges, the ball will be in the middle. Now we're getting into all this from about ball position, but I want you to, first off today is we want to get you to understanding of how I go through things and how you probably should be thinking about doing the same thing. Is that when you do practice, you want to practice the right way. You want to accomplish more in less time. Meaning that I'm going to think about what I'm doing here, because if I'm missing that ball left or right, then I know it's probably not my alignment, it's more of a swing issue. So if I'm missing that ball left or right, now I have things to work on. So it's not necessarily getting to a point where I'm talking about, hey, you got to do this, this, and this, and this, and just coming out and ramming, hitting shots and say, oh, I hit that pretty good, or I'm trying to hit my driver farther, or I'm trying to hit a little bit of a draw. Well, all these things that I'm working on here to start with little, meaning that little shots, meaning some sand wedges, maybe some pitches first, and get myself in that rhythm and working through to those longer golf clubs, okay? So, and again, remember, all these things that I am talking about here are very important. It probably took me, I don't know, about 4.5, 5 minutes to actually discuss what I did to you, and the actual time that I came out here and actually lined things up was a matter of probably a minute before I really set up my blueprint here for my practice for however long I want to go through. And I'm not just coming out here and just spending a whole hour, because I might not need an hour. There's no sense of trying to do something over and over again, especially hitting 20, 30, 40 drivers, which I don't particularly like to hit on the driving range, because I guess you kind of lose a little bit of focus out on the range because you have such a large area here. I always do like to go later in the afternoon on the golf course, and I'll actually bring some of the alignment sticks out on the golf course, and I'll actually hit 2 or 3 tee shots on every hole with my alignment sticks and just kind of hit those shots. You know, go to the fairway, pick the balls up, go to the next hole. Or I'll actually probably be more concerned on a hole where I really don't feel comfortable. I really never hit a good shot on that hole. I'm not going to go to the hole where I feel like it's fairly easy, it's wide open, meaning that 99% of the time I hit that fairway or hit that green, I'm going to go to that hole where it just doesn't seem like it fits my eye, or I have to shape it a certain way, or things like that. You know, sometimes there might be a little bit more of a clump of trees on the right-hand side or a left-hand side, or more a shoot situation, or a tee box maybe aiming a little bit to the right of the center of the fairway or left of the center of the fairway, because all those tee boxes are not lined up perfectly, okay? So that's where I go and practice my driver. But everything, and obviously if I'm practicing my driver out here, I won't hit, like I said, 40, 50 shots. I might hit 15 or so. And I'll take my time in between them. Because, and again, I've got a longer club, I'm trying to hit it farther. I don't want to get to a point where I got all that energy and I'm all juiced up and I got my blood flowing. And all it does is makes me want to swing harder and harder and harder. And usually I don't get results with that, especially on the driving range. Okay, so we start short, which means we just kind of get ourselves set up here, hitting some pitch shots. And I'll just kind of give you a couple examples we talked about here, is that if I'm starting, I might want to actually work on hitting more of these, maybe a longer chip shot, and just getting myself more comfortable and getting those hands and those arms relaxed back and through, and just working on getting that motion down a little bit there, okay? And I'll take my time. There's no reason to rush practice, okay? So I probably might hit maybe 10 or 15 of those and going up to some longer shots, and then maybe actually come back to this club here and actually start to hit more fuller shots. And one thing that is very important is that we want to make sure, and again, I'm just going to emphasize it again, it's not the one thing that's most important. It is the most important thing, is that we have to have a focus. When you come and take a golf lesson, usually, in my case, I will stress certain things that you need to work on. You got to work on one thing before we get to another. And a lot of times that one thing will help the other. The snowball effect. If this goes wrong, then this is going to go wrong. And as far we go, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger, and we develop this large problem, and then this large problem comes to this frustration and this eagerness to get better quickly, and that creates tension. And then we in turn get you in that position there and say, help me. At that point there, it's going to be a lot more difficult to get things across, because you're trying so hard to do something or trying not to do something. Hey, if I'm a 2 handicap and I just shot 84 and 85, 86, and I did this and did that, you might actually have to go back to basic 1, is just working on ball position. So those little tips that we're talking about right now are very, very important. You must listen to the instructor at the ends, or if there's drills that you've got to do. And again, if he tells you that all you have to be thinking about is what's going on here and making sure that your toes are lined up, all these simple things, it's very important. And this is the easiest way to do all of this, okay? So I really hope that this is going to help you more, because it's helped me. I don't necessarily have to have someone standing behind me for 2 hours and telling me that I'm lined up wrong or right, or the ball position's here. I need to understand those things visually. I see what's happening and get positive feedback, because we always, as golfers, we look at result and we try to adjust the result. Remember, that is a result of this. If we focus on all of this, the result will happen. If this is not right, chances are that's not going to be right. So, anybody needs any help on that, feel free to come in the golf shop, ask me, be more than happy to spend some time with you to really get you understand on how to practice.